Today is the 29th Sunday of Ordinary Time, Cycle A. The first reading from the book of the prophet Isaiah tells us that God can use strangers to help us. In the 6th century BCE, the Babylonians defeated the kingdom of Judea and destroyed the city of Jerusalem, as well as the temple Solomon had built, and took the leaders and all the skilled craftsmen into exile. Many longed to return home, even though Jerusalem was still in ruins. When Cyrus of Persia took over the Babylonian Empire, he allowed the Jews to return home. The Jews declared him a Messiah, although he was a follower of Zoroaster, a monotheistic prophet. In their eyes, God, the only true living God, was directing the hand of Cyrus, even though he was not Jewish. We have to be aware that God can use strangers or even those who think we are their enemies to help us. For example, St. Paul, a former persecutor of Christians, was converted by Jesus himself and became an apostle to the Gentiles. In today's gospel, the Pharisees were plotting with the Herodians to trap Jesus. They greeted Jesus with flattery, calling him honest, fair, and impartial. We have to be aware when people greet us with flattery that they usually have ulterior motives. The Herodians were Jews who supported Herod Antipas and were happy to cooperate with the Romans who had conquered Palestine. The census tax was a tax per person of 1 denarius, which all adult male Jews had to pay to the rulers. On the coin was the image of Tiberius Caesar, son, it said, and they had the inscription, Tiberius Caesar, son of the divine Augustus, the great high priest. If Jesus said it was not lawful, the Herodians would have accused him of aiding the revolt against the Romans. If he had said yes to paying the taxes, the Pharisees would have accused him of being a Roman sympathizer who most Jews despise. Tax collectors who collected taxes from before the Romans were also despised and excluded from synagogues and the temple. When Jesus asked to see a denarius coin, the crowd must have been surprised to see how easily the prominent Jews were able to produce a Roman coin with an image of a false god on it. Jesus avoided the question about the lawfulness of the tax. His answer was, repay to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to God what belongs to God. One could argue that indirectly, Jesus suggests that paying taxes to secular or pagan governments is not against the will of God. The coin belonged to Caesar, who minted the coin. What belongs to God? The answer is everything. Jesus avoids their trap, but does not suggest the separation of church and state. There can be no separation of church and state. The kingdom of heaven on earth is a vision of a society of peace and justice. Since politicians create the structure of the society, there can be no separation of church, the vision of God, and the state, the vision of politicians. All our time, talent, and treasure belong to God. Our talents, which normally the primary source of our economic well-being, are all from God. The question is, how do we prioritize the use of our time, talent, and treasure? Jesus would suggest the following order. First, we have to satisfy our basic needs: food, clothing, and shelter. Then the lack of basic necessities of others. Again, food, clothing, and shelter. The support, the third needs, the support of church to promote the spread and preaching of the gospel. Fourth, to support civic institutions, mostly by paying taxes. And fifth and last is our leisure, and our relaxation. To be truly pro-life, we have to encourage young mothers not to kill their children, but also to help them with baby hygiene like diapers, etc. Many times the choice of abortion is influenced by the non-support of the father emotionally and physically, and the economic circumstances of the orphan single mother. To celebrate Halloween, a pagan festival, many families spend lots of money on costume, decorations, and candy, but fail to contribute to help these mothers or help the poor. Our self-worth comes from our knowledge that God loves us and we are special in His eyes. There are those who have been very blessed by God and who are also very generous to the church. In general, where families have similar incomes, those with fancy cars are far less supportive of the church than those who drive regular cars. Supporting your church is more than trying to impress your neighbors. God, if my car payment was a little less, I would give you some more. When you give leftovers to God, do not expect bounteous blessings. What if God decided to give you leftover blessings? We're made in the image and likeness of God. His mark is stamped upon us and within us. Our whole being belongs to God, and everything we have and own should be at the disposal of the will of God. Building the kingdom of heaven on earth is one of His main priorities. We need